Good afternoon, fourth grade. Today you are going to begin your online course on PlayPosit. So you need your book out in front of you and your notes beside your book. It's very important that you pay attention and listen to everything that is said so that you can get all of your notes. So point to the quick write that's at the top of your notes. It says, look at the front cover, the table of contents, and the back cover. What do you think the genre of this book is? Why do you think that? And so as we're looking at the front cover, it says where the mountain meets the moon. We see a picture of a dragon and a girl. If we look at the back cover, it talks about a young girl named Min Lee who lived in the valley of Fruitless Mountain. She listens to her father's fairy tales or tales about the old man of the moon, and she sets out to go find the old man of the moon. If we look at the table of contents on the inside, we find that there's not a table of contents, and so we just have the front and the back cover to think about. So I'm thinking that, we have to decide, is this book fiction or nonfiction? And I'm going to decide that this book is fiction because I see a dragon on the front cover, and I know that those are fiction. And it talks about how Min Lee listens to her father's tales, and she decides to go find one of the characters in his tales. So silently write down your answer for what you think the genre of the book is and why. So you need 2 good sentences. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you are ready to start again. Our focus question for the day is, what are the characters like in the novel, and how does the setting affect the characters? So we are focusing on the C and the S in our CSPS. Before we begin reading, we want to preview some vocabulary. The first word is coax, and that's when you try to persuade someone to do something. And so this little girl's parents are trying to coax her into eating her grapes by giving her a corn dog. The second one is meager, and that's when you're lacking in quality or quantity. That means you have a small amount of something. It's meager. So that would be this plate that has just like a little bit of food on it. And the last one is impulsive. That's when you act or do something without thinking. And this lady's being very impulsive by eating like all the food in her refrigerator. Turn the page. And you can see in your notes that each box is part of the CSPS. So box number 1 is the character, number 2 is the setting, 3 is the problem, and 4 is the solution. So open up your book to chapter 1 and get ready to underline evidence in your text for CSPS. Far away from here, following the Jade River, there was once a black mountain that cut into the sky like a jagged piece of rough metal. The villagers called it Fruitless Mountain because nothing grew on it and birds and animals did not rest there. I'm going to stop right there because I already have evidence for the setting. The story takes place beside the Jade River, near a mountain called Fruitless Mountain, and nothing grew on Fruitless Mountain. Take a moment to underline what I've underlined and write an S, and then you can press pause to do that, and then press play when you're ready. Crowded in the corner of where Fruitless Mountain and Jade River met was a village that was a shade of faded brown. This was because the land around the village was hard and poor. To coax rice out of the stubborn land, the fields had to be flooded with water. And so we have more information about our setting. There's a village at the bottom of Fruitless Mountain where Jade River meets Fruitless Mountain, and that village is poor and brown looking. Silently underline the evidence for the setting. And we're on the other page at the top of the page. Villagers had to tramp in the mud, bending and stooping and planting day after day. Working in the mud so much made it spread everywhere, and the hot sun dried it onto their clothes and hair and homes. Over time, everything in the village had become the dull color of dried mud. So I'm going to stop right there. I have more evidence for my setting, and now I can make a really good sentence. The setting takes place on Fruitless Mountain. The village is poor and dirty. And I'm going to write that down in box 2. It says, describe the place where Minley lives. We know Minley is the character because she was on the back of our book. And we could say the setting takes place on Fruitless Mountain. The village is poor and dirty. Silently write that down in box 2. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready to keep reading. On the houses in this village one of the houses in this village was so small that its wood boards held together by a roof made one think of a bunch of matches tied with a piece of twine. Inside, there was barely enough for 3 people to sit around a table, which was lucky because only 3 people lived there. One of them was a young girl called Min Lee. So we have evidence for our character. There are 3 characters so far. One of them is a young girl named Min Lee. Min Lee was not brown and dull like the rest of the village. She had glossy black hair with pink cheeks, shining eyes, always eager for adventure, and a fast smile that flashed from her face. When people saw her lively and impulsive spirit, they thought of her name, which meant quick thinking. Suited her well. Too well, her mother sighed, as Min Lee had a habit of quick acting as well. Make sure that you are underlining the evidence just like I did and labeling it C for character. We know Min Lee is not dull brown like the village. Instead, she has glossy black hair with pink cheeks and shining eyes. Let's keep reading. Ma had sighed a great deal, an impatient noise usually accompanied with a frown at their rough clothes, run-down house, or meager food. Min Lee could not remember a time when Ma did not sigh. It often made Min Lee wish she had been called a name that meant gold or fortune instead, because Min Lee and her parents, like the village and the land around them, were very poor. I'm going to stop right there, and I think I have enough information to talk about Min Lee and her family. In box number 1, I'm going to write Min Lee's family is poor, but she is quick thinking and adventurous. Press pause to write down your answer in box 1. Then it says, what evidence from the text supports the conclusion that she is poor? And we know that the text actually says that she's poor. But if we keep reading, it says they were barely able to harvest enough rice to feed themselves. That we can write that quote down for the second part of box 1. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you are ready for the second part of box 2. How does Min Lee differ from her surroundings? If we go back onto this page, page 2 at the bottom of the page, we know that Min Lee is not dull and brown. Instead, she has glossy black hair with pink cheeks and shining eyes. So we can silently write that down. Min Lee is not dull brown like her surroundings. Instead, she has glossy black hair with pink cheeks and shining eyes. Press pause to silently write that down and play when you are ready to keep reading. Alright, so now we are looking for Min Lee's problem. We are at the top of page 3 in the middle paragraph where it says, They were barely able to harvest enough rice for themselves, and the only money in the house was 2 old copper coins that sat in a blue rice bowl with a white rabbit painted on it. The coins and the bowl belonged to Min Lee. They had been given to her when she was a baby, and she had had them for as long as she could remember. I'm going to stop right there because that lets us know our problem. Min Lee's family is very poor. Press pause and silently write down Min Lee's problem. It asks us how we know, and in the text it says they do not have enough money, they do not have enough food to feed themselves, and they only have 2 copper coins. So silently write that down in the second part of box 3. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready for number 4. We want to know, how does Min Lee try to solve her problem? I'm in the middle of page 3. Silently follow along. The coins in the bowl belonged to Min Lee. They had been given to her when she was a baby, and she had had them for as long as she could remember. What kept Min Lee from becoming dull and brown like the rest of the village were the stories her father told her every night at dinner. She glowed with such wonder and excitement that even Ma would smile, though she would shake her head at the same time. Ba seemed to drop his gray and weariness. His black eyes sparkled like raindrops in the sun when he began a story. So if we stop right there, we have our solution to their problem. To keep from being weary, Ba tells Min Lee stories. Silently write that down in box 4 for the solution. And it says, how do you know? And we know that this keeps them from being weary because she glowed with wonder and excitement. Even Ma would smile. And it says Ba's eyes would sparkle. So you could say Min Lee and her mother smile with excitement, and Ba's eyes sparkle when he tells stories. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you are ready for the paragraph. Turn the page to get ready for the paragraph. It says, how does the setting affect the characters? And you would restate the question using this sentence starter. The setting affects the characters by... And you need to go back to the setting where we learned that they live in a dull brown place where they are very poor. Okay, and the place where they live makes them poor. So you could say the setting affects the characters by making them very poor. Min Lee's family, and then you need to talk about how Min Lee's family lives in the village that is dull, the color of dried mud, and they don't have enough rice to feed themselves. Those are 2 quotes that you could use that we have underlined. And then you would need to explain why this means they're poor and how this shows the effect that it has on them.